Hey everyone, welcome to New Way Health Podcast, where we dive into hot topics around health and wellness and leave you with simple ways to implement change. Today, we're going to discuss ways to master your metabolism and actually give you a roadmap to get started. I'm Jennifer Gilman, and with me is Emily Abshire. We're both national board certified health and wellness coaches and functional medicine certified health coaches. Additionally, I have my master's in herbology, and Emily is an RN of 20 plus years. Emily, are you excited about today's topic?
I am excited. I love meta the metabolic system of my body. I love talking about it.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna like go there before we really dive in, but you just ran a group coaching, which you're going to continue for New Way
Mhm.
Health Coach, and it's called Empower Your Metabolism, you guys. But can you just give a quick little, I don't know, glimpse of what that entailed?
Oh yes, we met multiple times as a group and we wore a device called the Lingo on our arm for 2 weeks and it attached to our phone. We had an app and we could see our blood glucose levels 24/7 on the fabulous app and we could see how stress and our habits and food impacted our glucose levels.
That's so good. It's a continuous glucose monitor. For those of you who might have heard of CGMs, great tool to kind of really dial it in. I loved it. I was part of it too. And then Emily also in the group coaching offers a full 1 hour session directly with her, like a one-to-one. So we'll be continuing to do that in the future. So if you're listening and you're like, I want to be part of that, just let us know. So why is metabolism and blood sugar matter? Like, why is this even
Mm.
important?
Oh, the metabolism is so crucial. It is the root of how we break down foods and nutrients and macros and phytochemicals, and then how we rebuild our cells, our muscles, tissues. It is the core of what is happening that makes us you and me,
Yeah,
our body.
I love it. And what's the simple definition of metabolism?
Mm. Okay, so we have two
Curious.
parts really.
Okay.
Love the simplicity of it. Burning
Mm-hmm.
through the mitochondria,
Okay.
and then growth triggered by insulin.
Mm.
Right. So you may have heard the word catabolism versus
Mhm.
anabolism,
Yep.
right? It's the burning of calories, burning of our food that we're eating and digesting and assimilating it. And then we have the growth. Like, how do we grow muscles? How do we grow healthier mitochondrial cells? How do we grow things, tissues, and rebuild cartilage and stuff that in our body? Those two
Yes.
ideas.
Yeah, I love that. And for those you had mentioned mitochondria. Okay, so for those are like mito what? What is that actually? Why is that important?
Most of our cells in our body have the organelle mitochondria, right? They are the powerhouse of how that cell performs, is creating ATP, our energy, sorry, the currency of our energy, how we move, get up from your desk, cook, stir, work out, lift your children up. Everything revolves around how much ATP, how much energy is your mitochondria producing so you can live life.
Yes. And that's what like the role of metabolism is to convert food to
Mm.
energy. So if you get this one thing out of this podcast of like, oh my gosh, I can get more energy by paying attention to this, then bingo, you've got it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Emily, but I'm hearing from my clients left and right when they first start with us, all of them want more energy. I don't know of one single person that I've worked with in the last 6 years
Mm.
since I started coaching that has never said, no, Jen, I don't want any more energy. I'm good. They've never said that. They actually said the opposite. So, so this is that important. I love
It
that.
is.
So what's the myth of, oh, I have a slow metabolism
Mm.
versus metabolic dysfunction? What is that exactly? Why is that is it a myth or is it true?
Okay, well, I could say safely, so I don't hurt anybody's feelings. It could be both, right? You could have genetically a slower kind of metabolism when it comes to how fast you burn a caloric intake, right? Calories in, calories out. But metabolic dysfunction is really about a cellular level. What's your HDL, like your cholesterol levels? What's your visceral fat? What's your blood pressure? Do you remember learning in school those, if you have three of the five, then you sort of are in a metabolic dysfunction, right? That's the hemoglobin A1C. Those are things that we measure to indicate whether you're metabolically more stable or metabolically dysfunction. And if you are a dysfunction, if you are not functioning well, then you can say, yeah, I have a slower, messed up, or not high functioning, not efficient metabolism. Because not because you have a slow metabolism because food in and out, calories in and out, but because maybe everything else around it, your blood pressure, your glucose levels, your HDL is not high enough, your visceral fat's holding you back because of the comorbidities, the things that surround that metabolism that's holding you back.
Yes. So that's really, I love how you went there and just, realizing that one size does not fit all.
Mm.
We have to look at you as an individual person. And I want you to start thinking about that too. If you're listening, it's like there's a lot of metrics. Never just think it's just the number on the scale or how much energy you do or don't have. There's so many things that we need to factor into this. That's why our coaching is around total well-being, not just physical health, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the whole package, because otherwise we might not address something that's affecting your energy. So that's why this is so important. We're going to give you a 5-step roadmap, though. I'm really excited to get into this. And so to break it down, I want to introduce the first one. The first step is balancing your blood sugar. So how do we do that? What
It
would you
is
recommend?
it is the root cause. I don't know if you've had clients or if you've heard cut calories, right? Just go low caloric intake.
I'm
That's
like,
that's
oh,
not it's not
no.
really necessarily the healthiest first thing to do.
Mhm.
You must balance. You must lower that glucose and that insulin load. That is key to success. Metabolically being stable and healthier, decrease that glucose lows, lower that blood glucose before you decide to go to caloric deficit. And what does that mean, right? What does that mean? How do I lower my blood glucose? Eating things that spike glucose, right? Eating high index or high glycemic load foods definitely increase that glucose. So carbs,
Mhm.
sugar come to my mind right away. If you're eating the simple carbs or some candy and some sugars, that automatically spikes your glucose. And so to be more protein forward and more fiber forward when you think about the food, that would serve you well versus like just cutting out the calories. You can eat as much fiber, it's what a bowl of salad full of 1,500 calories is completely different than two Snickers bars, 1,500 calories.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
it's
think
like,
about that.
yeah. So a really good example, like when people are using the continuous glucose monitor and Emily, I work with our clients, whether it's the group coaching or one-to-one, a lot of time it's the breakfast that we start with because
Mm.
they're just blown away. Like I thought I was eating and the right thing, and I'm getting this massive spike in the morning because they'll have their coffee and then maybe they'll put some collagen in it or something, and then just like nothing else. We're like, oh my gosh, we need to add some protein to it. So it's really like understanding the building blocks, like what kind of macronutrients do we need to maybe add or reduce so that you don't have such a massive spike and your body can actually, come in and handle whatever that is, right? We don't want spikes to
Yeah.
be large. We don't want them to be 40 or 50 points over, fasting glucose. So those are things that we love diving into and helping you build the right kind of a meal. So when I was in Spain, I was traveling with somebody that like she was just loving the pastries there, and I'm like, girl, I cannot eat these pastries like you because I knew like if I have a coffee and a pain au chocolat, a
Yeah.
chocolate croissant, which I did a couple of times, but it's like I can't do that regularly, and then making sure I have like a hard-boiled egg with it or something, so that it kind of calms it down a little bit. But man, that would raise my blood sugar so high if I didn't add some protein.
Yeah. And that's what causes the crash and that up and down roller coaster all day
Yeah,
long. When
yeah.
you crash, then you're going to think that you're hungry and then you're
Hmm.
going to eat more food versus that longing to have some egg, that protein to stabilize that blood sugar. So then you don't necessarily have that crash and then you're not reaching for something at 11 o'clock in the morning. you won't have
Yeah.
those ups and downs.
So
Stabilizing blood glucose is key.
yeah. So that's really the step one, guys. So if you have really balancing blood sugar first, highly recommend getting a continuous glucose monitor or reaching out to you. We can help you with that and really seeing for yourself in real time what is actually happening because that's you will want to change your meals like that day. So it's amazing. It makes such a great impact. So number two is upgrading your fuel. What does
Mm.
that mean, Emily?
Eating food that's nutrient dense, right? That has all of these phytochemicals, all of these eating the color of the rainbow. We think about food so much in macros, but we forget the small micronutrients, selenium, chromium, cobalt, all of those trace things that our body, we're talking about metabolism and our cells are communicating to one another. That is our metabolic. How does my one cell communicate to the other cell? When I eat a carrot, what does my body do to convert that to the actual nutrients it needs for the other cells, like my eyes, right? And so that conversion is the metabolism. And it's important to make sure that I get those nutrients in my system so that I can boost my metabolism and not hold my metabolism back with more like the processed foods. What's the saying? Barcode, bagged, and barcode, bagged, and boxed. Those foods tend to hold you back,
Mhm.
decrease your metabolism, and just slow your metabolism down.
Yeah, and I was listening to a podcast yesterday and they were like talking about how many apps are there that you're, taking your
Mm.
phone and in looking at the barcodes for the relying on it to say whether this is a good food or not, which yes, they're like Yuka, Yuka, that's a great
Mhm.
app. There's many of them out there. However, there's no barcode on a cucumber or a sweet potato or, a piece of chicken. There's no barcode on real foods, So,
Yeah,
so let's not forget about those. Like those are real food
yeah.
with no barcode. So I love that you brought that up. Now, what about timing? Because upgrading your
Mhm.
fuel also has a lot to do with meal timing.
Yeah, the intermittent fasting or the eating of the window that you eat, right? That's important. You don't want to be eating up 1 hour or 30 minutes prior to bedtime because that robs you of what the sleep and the recovery is supposed to be doing for you. And
Yeah.
so timing your food, the research is all about 2 to 3, 4 hours, depends on if you're man or a female. Make sure you do not go to bed with food in your system. You want that assimilated and digested, and you want your blood glucose low. So the moment you fall asleep, then you can boost your metabolism, right? You have the increase in melatonin, and then your body starts recovering in that deep sleep, transitions beautifully to the REM, doesn't have that glucose spike or that low. People waking up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because their glucose is too low.
Mhm.
So we want that 7 to 9 hours of sleep so we can boost our metabolism. And that takes the when do I eat dinner, right? The mindfulness of when am I eating dinner and when am I putting the last food in my mouth so that I can support sleep through the timing of my meal, which also then we can talk about breakfast, right?
Yeah.
Skipping breakfast, women especially,
Yeah.
skipping breakfast or working out on a HIIT workout or a cardio workout without eating breakfast or some protein before it, they're running off of cortisol. And
Mhm.
that's bad for the metabolism.
Yeah.
And so the research that I read is saying, women try to eat at least 1 hour after waking,
Mhm.
getting you some protein and some healthy fats in you to decrease that cortisol and balance that blood sugar.
Yeah. In all the research I read, it doesn't need to be a big meal. It could be like
Mm.
something with like 15 grams of protein or something. Doesn't have to be this like a full shake. It could be a half a shake or something with a decent amount of protein and some kind of healthy carbohydrate. So yeah, I love that you brought that up. And again, women especially, they're like, I can't lose weight, and they're working out so much, and wondering why. And because you're robbing like from your adrenal glands, and now our adrenal glands are exhausted because it's pushing cortisol. So thank you for bringing that up. So that's upgrading your full fuel. Third step is moving strategically. And I
Mhm.
will say, I'll share something when years ago when I wore my first CGM, one of the biggest things I found was this, I'm going to call it a hack just because biohacking is kind of fun, but it's also just good for your body is walking after dinner. That was
Mm.
huge when I wore my CGM. And this again, the first time I did was like 4 years ago or something. And my functional medicine doctor is like, this is a cool new tool. I'm like, I want to try it out, right? And this was big. It was shortly after my meal, usually within a half an hour, I was out walking and I didn't need to walk real fast or anything like that. Just a nice walk for about 15 minutes and I watched my spike go
Mm.
down. I was watching it in real time. So tell us more
Powerful.
about moving strategically.
So at a cellular level, right, when we eat food, I don't care if it's protein, carbs, fibers, it doesn't matter. That is fuel for our body, especially our muscles, right? Our muscles are longing for those amino acids. So the moment you start working, moving, working out after a meal, doing some air squats, body squats, anything to move, your muscles will grab that glucose in the bloodstream and utilize that. Right. So then let's go to that insulin. Insulin is the driver of what we do with that glucose. If you're moving your muscles and activating your muscles, the muscles absorb that glucose. But if you're not, if you're just sitting at your desk working after you just ate your lunch and then a snack or some fruit right after, you have all this glucose in your system. The body's like, okay, what do we do with it? You're not moving. The muscles aren't utilizing this. So the insulin will say, okay, we'll store it as fat and
Hmm.
we'll utilize it later.
Yeah. Did
And
you guys
so,
hear that? Can you repeat that last part there?
yes,
Seriously.
the insulin will store it as fat because your muscles aren't requiring it right there. Right? It has two options. Give it to the muscles or store it as fat.
I want to give it to the muscles, please.
So
Yes.
you've got to move I
Yes.
mean,
I love it.
calf raises, right?
Yeah,
Sit
interesting.
against the wall squats, walk
Yeah.
for 15 minutes, do some high knees, anything to activate muscles after a meal. Profound. You will see that glucose, if you were in the CGM, drop drastically because muscle loves utilizing that glucose for the energy source.
Yes. And I love the idea of exercise snacks, just do little movements throughout the day. Like, okay, you just finished lunch and you have time to do some squats or lunges, do it.
Mhm.
Later on, you might get a walk in, whatever that is. So, life is busy. So wherever we can fit it in, but be intentional about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say on muscles, when you build that muscle. So I do the in-body scans all day long on patients, right? We see the clients, we see the muscle grow, and then I can see the BMR on the side on the in-body scan increase. And I find that patients that increase muscle mass have a higher BMR, the higher basal metabolic rate, which is increasing metabolism as part of that metabolism. And so
Mm,
the more muscle you have, the better metabolism you have, the higher it is. So and muscles love amino acids. So you have to eat more the more muscle you have because it requires more.
yes. Yeah. So this is all part of mastering your metabolism. So yeah, I hope that you all caught that. And so that was moving strategically. Step four is sleep plus stress equals metabolic multipliers. What does that mean, Emily?
Well, if you were wearing a CGM and you had poor sleep,
Hmm.
you will notice the next day your blood glucose will be just higher. The baseline will be higher. Sleep is really foundational when it comes to metabolism. The better sleep you get, the more efficient, the more recovered, the deeper sleep, 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, your baseline of blood glucose will start off pretty low. But the compounding negative effects of poor sleep night after night, our glucose level, because of cortisol, go up.
Hmm.
And so if you are trying to work on your metabolism, put sleep in that formula. Like we said, this is number 4 of mastering your metabolism. Sleep must be on that. You do not want to wake up with high blood glucose levels before you even start the day.
Absolutely. And then stress is a really big part too.
Mm.
So we wanted to give you a few tips on just really helping you reduce your stress. It's how do we start our day? Do you have a moment where you just sit with your coffee or tea or do a little bit of journaling? It doesn't need to take time, but how do you begin your day? Maybe you have a
Mhm.
devotional, whatever it is, take just a moment for yourself. And then your wind down routine at night is huge. Maybe we dim the lights around the house, we stop the TV at least an hour before bed, do some deep breathing. Having a digital detox at that point of like setting a time aside to be like, I'm done with the phone. I checked the final message. It's down for the night and it's not in my bedroom, you know? So those are some ways to de-stress. Any other tips you have for that part for stress?
Well,
Step four.
when we think about it in our cell, a cellular level, cortisol increases glucose. Glucose triggers insulin. So if you're watching the politics, getting in a fight with your partner on the couch
Yeah.
late at night, 30 minutes prior to bedtime, right? You have high cortisol, high glucose, and then you're going to go to the kitchen for a snack before bedtime, and then you immediately lay down. You got high glucose, high cortisol, the insulin's kicking in, and you're going to have a restless night. And so, really prioritizing what am I doing that hour before bedtime to decrease? I always, what is Emily's de-stress protocol? What is my
Mhm.
protocol for the evening, my sleep hygiene, so I can go to bed with low glucose, low insulin, um, and just have a good night of sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you're so important. So think about that as put yourself as a priority here because this is a huge part of this roadmap for you. Now, the fifth step is to track it,
Mhm.
test it and tweak it. You know, this is important is some things may work for you right off the bat and others you're like, this is not quite working. I need to adjust it. So make sure you're doing that is, you know, tracking it, testing it. Is it working? Is it not? Tweaking it all along the way and listen to your body. You know, are you hungry at certain times? Do we need to maybe close a gap between one meal versus the other? Are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough healthy fats? Things like that. Pay attention to your cravings and what that might be saying to you. And then what are some tools? I know we slipped in a
Mhm.
few, but what tools do you want to highlight before we finish up?
Ooh, I love the labs. Don't forget about blood work, right? Thyroid, hemoglobin A1C, your liver enzymes, it's all part of your metabolism. So
Hmm.
blood work, in-body scans, DEXA scans. We have a symptom tracker, so we have documents that people can document some symptoms. Oh, food journals.
Yeah.
Oh, just being mindful of what you're eating or how you feel. Food journals that also encompass stress,
Hmm.
meditation,
Yes.
gratitude, documenting those things and keeping track of those. And plus, of course, my favorite is the CGM.
Yes, absolutely. It's so good. So you've got your five steps now, and I want to invite you to start with step one. You know, just start to look at that balancing of the blood sugar. Maybe get yourself a CGM. You can reach out to us, whatever is going to work for you. So just start there, one step at a time. If you like this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe and share it with a friend who you feel needs to hear this. And until next time, go out and be present for today because today is what we have control over. Bye for now.